Full disclosure, this is the podcast daily for Wednesday morning, but it is not being recorded on a Wednesday. The transfer portal is not completely closed yet. It's cracked open. The window is just barely open. And so Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and me, Austin Ward, we're still projecting that this is how it's going to end for Ohio State. They, as of this moment, Bill, they have 5 players in the transfer portal this window leaving the program. Seems like they have, for the most part, successfully navigated the spring transfer portal window.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know that I expected an exceptionally large group of departures, but 5 is probably fewer than I would have guessed if you held me to a number at the time that the portal opened a couple weeks ago. So yeah, Ohio State seems to have gotten through this pretty okay. Did lose some guy, one pretty important guy, I think, in Dallan Hayden. But otherwise, I don't know, losses that I think are difficult to avoid anymore in college football. It's just like the bottom, I don't know, 10% of your roster, maybe even a larger percentage. I think it's just really hard to hold on to for any program. So for Ohio State to be at 5 or frankly, even under double digits in this spring window, I think is a pretty remarkable development.
In full transparency, as we record this, it's 8:05 on Tuesday night. So there's 3 hours and 55 minutes of potential mayhem remaining. Last we heard, Ohio State said
that was unnecessary because if the mayhem happens, we're going to be recording a new show.
Oh, I'm not done. The last we heard, the Ohio State sources were like, we could see maybe 1 or 2 more. So no matter what happens, if something else occurs between now and midnight, we will just record an addendum to this video and put it at the end.
No, see, we should have maybe talked about that beforehand.
Nope.
If there's something that merits an addendum, then there will have been snap judgments
more
that
changes,
are brought to you by Buyers Auto.
Addenduming the hell out of it.
No, we'll go back and watch snap judgments from last night when things went haywire. That's what's going to happen. There won't be an addition to this episode.
Okay. That's fine. All right, I concur. Now that we're past that, it has been a weird couple weeks. I mean, but the idea that anybody of major import was going to be walking out the door, I don't think was ever realistic, but I think that there was a concern that maybe 2 or 3 guys from the legitimate 2 deep would get plucked because you'd think that maybe someone across the country would flash a couple extra dollars and at someone, and cheddar being what it is, everyone loves cheddar. You would think maybe that someone would have been drawn by that, but Ohio State has a lot of cheddar, apparently.
Should have dropped a little pepper jack. Maybe that'll get him out there. Put a little spice on the pepper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Burm, I admire the restraint. Bill teed you up perfectly. He said, this is what's going to happen with roster churn, the bottom 10%. You've been saying it for months, that you just have to come to terms with it. And that's effectively what happened here. We can get into this and maybe rank the impact of the departures, but you said it could even be more than 10%. It could be 20% of the roster, and you just have to be okay with that in this day and age.
I think eventually that's probably what it gets to, but maybe not necessarily in the spring portal window or the winter portal window, but combined, I think that's pretty much what did happen for Ohio State. They lost a total of 20 guys from the end of last season. That's a lot of players. I mean, that's how many percent is that? That's a lot. It's 30%. I'm not good at math, but 20 of 85 is a lot. Yeah. So that is what's going to happen, and you do have to just come to terms with it. Now, what we're going to see is, and I think Ohio State is uniquely positioned in this specific cycle because of all the factors we've already talked about, the potential national championship, the depth that they have in current places that maybe hasn't been really experienced depth. So it's hard to see guys leaving who are expected to play a lot but haven't really played a lot, but now they know they're going to play a lot. So why would you leave a potential national championship team? All of the depth that we could project ahead and say these guys are not going to be a major factor in the 2024 season or beyond. Those guys are all gone. So that's the remaining percent, whatever it is, of the guys that are either going to be the primary pieces of this 2024 run or the primary pieces of 2025 and beyond. So I don't think that Ohio State they didn't have a coaching change like Alabama losing key freshmen. They didn't have a coaching change like Washington and decimating the program, or Michigan. So like there's a lot of things that I don't think would have made sense to happen, but the things that have so far all make sense.
Should we just go with roughly a quarter of the roster? I mean, I don't know how many fingers Bill was actually flashing, and people listening couldn't have seen it anyway. So let's just go with that.
Bill have.
He showed a lot. I don't know. He's a six-fingered man. Bill, you said outside of Dallan Hayden. I think that means that if we're ranking the most impactful departure here, we're probably all in agreement that would be the person. And on top of that, if that is the worst departure of spring for Ohio State as their third string running back, I think they probably would have gladly accepted that outcome.
Yeah. Quickly before I discuss that, because Berm did mention something about cheddar that I think is important this time of year, and I think the one thing you do worry about in this current climate is like whether or not the direct deposit hits, the promised direct deposit hits. And it seems like that's not an issue for Ohio State, which is a good thing for Ohio State. But it seemed like it was an issue at a few other programs where people were worried about guys ditching because they weren't getting what they were promised. So we know that Ohio State has made a significant financial investment into this roster, and it seems like whatever they have promised to this point has come to fruition. So that's good for the Buckeyes.
Well, yeah, isn't Jaden Rashada on the move again? So
yeah, right.
What? No, he didn't leave Georgia already, did he?
He seems to be the test case for that direct deposit not hitting. I think he's
or who was Bear Alexander was like, I'm leaving, and then UCLA's like, wait, or USC said, wait, we got the money. He's like, okay, I'm back. So
Christian Miller at Georgia went in and said he was leaving, and everyone assumed he was just going to go to USC, who wasn't willing to pay Bear Alexander until Bear Alexander called their bluff. And then obviously Georgia called his bluff, and then he ended up, withdrawing his intention. It's like, it's so funny because it's not even like he's in the portal. It's like, I'm intending to enter the portal. I'm withdrawing my intent. What are we doing? You've got a graphic to say that the kid has intended to enter the portal. Then you have another graphic to say he's officially entered the portal. Then a third graphic to say he's no longer in the portal. Then a fourth graphic to say he's back in his old school, or a fifth graphic to say, well, here's his new school. Like, what are we doing? This is so stupid.
You got to get that engagement, baby.
Good Lord, man. Good Lord.
I really enjoy too, and I'm not to rag on Kristen Miller, who like has a pretty bubbly personality. That
I love Kristen.
But he like posted a rap on his Instagram account like 4 days before announcing he was going into the portal about dreaming of NIL dollars. And then he went into the portal and then immediately came back to Georgia. Yeah, so it's great. It's great. I love what we're doing here.
I dream about NIL dollars every night too, but they haven't shown up yet.
Yeah. Have you considered entering the transfer portal?
I don't think I'm allowed. I've tried to figure out a way, but I'm too happy at TPD University. So where else would I go? Dallan Hayden, I said a while ago, and then we started talking about greenbacks and cheddar.
That's right. I'm sure he got some to go to Colorado, which good.
I would hope so, because there's not a lot of other reason for him to go there.
That is true.
Beautiful area.
Boulder is beautiful, except for their spring game. It snowed.
They should make a soap opera called The Boulder and the Beautiful. I think there's something there.
I can't believe Coach Prime didn't embrace that last year.
You guys know what I think? I think sometimes we don't generally record the podcast daily this late, and I think it's probably a bad idea because I don't know that you're ready for my nighttime energy. Because this is what happens when I've had a whole day of stuff.
This is like road beers, except I assume you're totally sober.
Kirkland water, baby.
Dallan Hayden.
By far the most impactful departure.
That's what I
of this spring portal window. But to your point, it's like if that's the thing that's hitting you the hardest and it's your third string running back, I think you're living okay. Like I like throughout this entire offseason have felt the conversation about like the need for more depth and playing more guys has been like slightly overblown. I think it is partly true, but the extent to which it's true, I think, has been overstated a little bit. But I think, we've watched Ohio State long enough to know that you're probably going to need more than 2 running backs to get through a season. So it would have been nice to have Dallan Hayden around. But Ohio State also gave a pretty strong endorsement of that room by not going out and getting anybody after Dallan Hayden left. So I really don't know how badly they feel about it. I think they would have liked to have Dallan, obviously, but they clearly still feel pretty good about what they have on hand. So if that's the case, then I think Ohio State's okay. And otherwise, it's I don't know. It would have been nice, I guess, to have Jihad Carter, although I have no idea what he could be in an Ohio State uniform. And then I didn't really consider anybody else that left to be a factor for this season, even as a depth piece. So if that's what you're losing, then I think you're good.
Yeah, I don't think that the need for depth is being overstated. I think that the need for depth is you need depth that can actually play for your team. And Dallan Hayden is the only one of these current 5 players that have entered the transfer portal that is actually able to play and contribute and be a benefit for Ohio State. That is not the case with Cedric Hawkins. It's not the case with Eno Vahi. It's not the case with Jihad Carter, and it's not the case with Nigel Glover. So I think that that's the difference, and that's why Dallan Hayden is in a different department of this conversation. And aside from the fact that he left before the portal actually opened, so he actually was someone that was pretty highly coveted, obviously. And that's where his loss has the most impact. And not because he's irreplaceable, because I do think TC Caffey, when behind an Ohio State offensive line, might be just as productive over a course of a 15-game season as Dallan Hayden would have been. But I think that Dallan Hayden clearly is the one guy that could have played this year and made a difference for Ohio State if needed.
He's definitely in his own lane here. As you mentioned, Berm, he went in before the portal was actually open, because that and this has been going on since the moment Dallan Hayden arrived at Ohio State, that there were DMs and back channel conversations with programs. Now, not Colorado specifically. I'm thinking primarily of Tennessee, that never stopped wanting Dallan Hayden to come play for that program. But he had also proven for Ohio State that he could give production at that position when the football was in his hands. So there was optimism for his future. There was production presently. There were other people that were coveting him in the transfer portal or going into the transfer portal. So he was unique to that. The others, with Nigel Glover there and Cedric Hawkins, they were less than 1 year or 1 full year in the program, had not got on the field in any way, shape, or form. So was there a clear path at their position to play? Probably not. And then with Jihad Carter, a veteran, even if he'd only been at Ohio State for 1 year, had not proven in spring or last year with just those 5 tackles that he could actually play at a starting caliber level for Ohio State. And then Eno Vahi, 2 career starts after 5 years, and neither one of those starts went in a way that could give the Buckeyes confidence that he could play. So they're 2 guys in long-term plays. They didn't maybe want to see the development program through. There were 2 other guys. Jihad doesn't really fit in this, but Eno Vahi went all the way through. It didn't work out. He wasn't going to play for Ohio State. Dallan Hayden was in the middle of that. If this is the end of that group at 5, it doesn't change anything about the 2024 outlook for Ohio State.
No, again, I don't. I guess the only thing I would say is do you worry about safety depth? But I still don't know that you do. Not in a world so much where I think we had this conversation where the nickel spot is more of a cornerback. If this were 2 years ago and we thought that the nickel position might more come out of the safety room, then perhaps you worry about the depth there. But I still think they're okay with what they have on hand. You have some guys there that need to get healthy and stay healthy, obviously, with Lathan Ransom and Malik Hartford. But otherwise, I think it's 6 guys for 2 spots. And I think you feel pretty good about Caleb Downs, obviously, and Lathan Ransom, and probably Malik Hartford as your top 3 there. And then I guess it gets a little thin quickly without a Jihad Carter. But again, there's no guarantee that Jihad Carter was going to be an impactful player here. His arc at Ohio State was bizarre, because I thought he was going to be a nice addition for them when they got him. He was a productive player at Syracuse. And then I don't know if it was a matter of talent or just availability, but either way, it didn't really work out, obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, if you're talking, you look at this and just from a number standpoint, you can see where losing Cedric Hawkins and losing Jihad Carter after already losing Cam Martinez, after losing other players in the winter portal window that like, oh, maybe this is a problem. But think about this spring, what we saw when Lathan Ransom wasn't even playing and Malik Hartford's not playing. And every time we got to be out there, all we saw was Jaden Bonsu and Jalen McClain. It wasn't even Cedric Hawkins and it wasn't Jihad Carter. And then you add Leroy Roker this summer. He'll arrive on campus in a month. Like, you're going to be okay there. Again, like, it's pretty remarkable that Ohio State, again, here we are now, 3 hours and 40 minutes left until the portal closes.
We're just going to run until midnight.
I know. I'm fine with that. And I was actually wondering, do you guys think, like, I was actually going to recommend that we do this show on like 8:00 live Wednesday morning. Do you think? I don't know. We've got a pretty good rhythm here at 5 a.m. a published time. Do you think we should start doing the show in the morning, like 8 a.m. every day live? It'll get me out of bed early.
That wasn't what you said the other day when we talked about it. You said, should we start getting up and posting it live at 5 a.m. every morning, like doing the show? And I was like, no, we definitely shouldn't. You are
no, but like, what about 8 a.m.?
No.
I have a 1-year-old and Austin has a 6-year-old. So
yeah, so you guys are already up. I wake up most days about 8:35, 8:45 a.m. It'll help me get out of bed earlier if we do the show live every morning. No? Okay, whatever.
No.
What was I saying?
I don't know, but how did you make your camera view change with a wave of a hand? You're like,
I don't know why
you're making all sorts of nonsense happening.
I don't know why it did change. I don't know why it went to the wide shot, but then I had to bring it back.
You made a wild hand gesture above your head, and then it zoomed out.
Well, there must be on these cameras that we use. There must be some sort of hand gesture thing that I don't know about, but pretty cool.
We've done a lot of very weird episodes of the Podcast Daily, and this one where we said it was Tuesday and just like revealed our secrets has maybe been the weirdest one of all time.
Okay, well, what I was saying, and I remember what I was saying. So there's 3 hours and 40 minutes, right? And it's remarkable. Ohio State has only lost one player that was even going to play this season in the spring portal window. It looks like all 5 quarterbacks are going to stay. Like, that's incredibly unexpected. There has been no movement in the wide receiver room from the bottom third of that room, which again is pretty unexpected. Like, I think that the Ohio State coaches deserve a ton of credit for their ability to get guys to buy into this culture. And it proves what I've said over the last couple of years in recruiting wise, like they're recruiting really like strong, good kids who understand that this is a process and is not an instant gratification type of play at Ohio State. So I think it's like, we're going to talk about it and it's going to be sloughed off, and then we're going to come up with some other offseason conversation to discuss in the next couple of weeks. But like, it really is telling about what the program is built upon. And I think that the coaches deserve a lot of credit for that.
They do, but you probably can't give it to them alone, right? I mean, we know that Ryan Day has taken on a more active CEO role that includes NIL conversations. Well, he cannot be involved directly in those negotiations till this rule changes, but the collectives, the fan base have all been a part of this as well. We if we're going to talk about the cheddar exists here. Ohio State has leaned into taking care of their roster, which is why so many of these guys put off the NFL draft to return anyway, and why you're continuing to see that with lower numbers in the transfer portal. In the grand scheme of things, for winter and spring, that number is relatively large, but we talked about that in January. It had to be because Ohio State was so far over the scholarship numbers. They have not lost, certainly not in zero in the spring, other than Dallan Hayden, and then maybe 1 or 2 guys that they were like surprised or not thrilled about in the January portal window. Like, they've navigated this, I think, to the very best of their ability, which is fair to point out to the coaches, but also includes the locker room itself, the brotherhood part that we talk about. They have backed that up. I mentioned that in December. We're going to see how many guys actually want to live that and live up to that bond and stick around through this process. And then the collective groups as well with 1870 and the foundation and cohesion, or everybody else that's involved. Like, they've all done their part. Like, that's how you get to a situation like this.
Are we surprised at the other side of that coin, which is like they didn't really seem to be involved with the potential addition of anybody either.
I mean, well, you tell me, Bill. Like if there's a starting, everyone asked us about UCLA starting left tackle going into the portal on Tuesday. Like, and I understand the immediate impulse to say Chip Kelly and Justin Fry, and this guy's starting for a Power 5 school, like to try and put the pieces together. But outside of offensive linemen, and I guess I'm saying we don't believe him to be a fit based on PFF. You can talk about your research into him and what you know about him more specifically if you want to here. But like, I'm struggling to see where else Ohio State really would have gone based on what was available in this window.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is offensive line, which like stick a pin in that for a second. It's running back depth, which clearly they don't feel like they need to do, or like safety depth, which is probably a pretty hard sell. But the offensive line thing, yeah, they're just like I think if there were tackles out there that like fit the mold, Ohio State probably would have given them a pretty strong look, but there just weren't any. And that guy from UCLA who went in on Tuesday was like arguably the worst power conference tackle in college football last year. And like, it's not on Ohio State fans to know that. Right? Like I understand, like you think Ohio State needs offensive line help. You see a starter from any power program going to the portal, your antennas get up and you think like, oh, could this be a fit? Especially when there are natural ties to people who are on your coaching staff. It's on us, I think, as people who cover the team to like quickly tell you the deal. Which is like that guy's not good. So like that's not what Ohio State's looking for. He's in the portal because he was going to lose his starting job, and I think UCLA had moved him from tackle to guard. So like that's just not what Ohio State needs, I think, in my opinion, from the portal. They were looking for a no doubt about it upgrade over at either right tackle or right guard. And in my opinion, that option never emerged and really like didn't even come close to emerging. There just wasn't a whole lot out there in the second window. So because of that development, I'm not surprised they haven't added anybody, but I guess maybe nationally, like outside of the people who are as close to Ohio State as we are and our listeners are, like maybe there was probably the expectation that they would do something only because they had made so many noteworthy additions in the initial portal window. But I think it makes sense that they didn't add a whole lot or really add anything here in this second window.
It's noteworthy that they didn't try to induce anybody to get into the window either.
Yeah.
And I think that is telling about how they feel about the current situation. Like we are all adults in the room. We understand how this works now. Like if Ohio State wanted to tamper and find an offensive tackle somewhere, I bet they probably could have found someone. But they weren't going after that. Here we are. Like they've lost 5 guys. They haven't added anybody just to add depth. I think that there are, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but between TC Caffey, between guys like Inky Jones, guys like Ryan Rudzinski, there are a lot of players on the roster that are walk-ons that are worthy of adding a scholarship to for this upcoming season, as opposed to just going out and finding a depth piece from Bowling Green or something like that. Like there's good athletes and guys who have committed to the program that are more valuable to the Buckeyes than adding somebody from, and especially because I think what we're seeing, so many of the guys that are entering the transfer portal right now have already been in the transfer portal before. So to add somebody who may leave after next season, what value is there to that? Like if you can reward Ryan Rudzinski or Inky Jones or TC Caffey, that's a much better use of the scholarship, in my opinion.
Well, now, and if Bruno Fina, that's who we're talking about here from UCLA, if he really wants to be coached by Chip Kelly again and Justin Fry and is okay, like coming in with the expectation that he's probably going to be a backup and could slide in to maybe do the things that Eno Vahi did, like fine. But I think there was a knee-jerk reaction out there like, oh, this guy has started games at the Power 5 level for these coaches. He could go in and immediately supplant Josh Fryer. Like I'm telling you, he cannot, and that won't. But if he wants to do the other thing, like cool, like go for that. But Ohio State's not looking for a starting tackle or not seeing a starting tackle in this guy here or anybody else that's in the portal as we're sitting right here with 3 hours and 33 minutes to go.
I think it's so valuable for Ohio State to not have guys like Eno Vahi on the roster. Like, sorry, like if you're going to, and this is not meant to be a knock on Enoch, but if we get into the third quarter of the season opener against Akron and Ohio State's putting in their second team offensive line and Eno Vahi is in there instead of Luke Montgomery and Austin Sareveld, I will shoot myself. You know what I mean? So like, it does
I'm
not.
afraid we do.
It does not actually help the program to have a 6th-year offensive lineman who can't play. So, sorry.
Amen.
I think the Cotton Bowl made that point more clear than anything else we could have said about it.
Nice kid. How many years do we have to go through it to realize that he can't perform at the level Ohio State needs him to perform?
All right. Do you have any other count? You want to continue the countdown, Berm, or are you good here?
I mean, I really want to turn this live right now and just stay on here all night. I got nothing else to do. I've got nothing but time.
Oh, I don't see again. I don't think that Bill and I are in the exact same situation that you are.
I'll do it. Fine. I'll do it myself.
You're going live.
God.
All right.
Overnight live stream. That's only Berm.
Oh my gosh.
I would pay money to watch see where that adventure goes.
Fire up your Only Berms accounts. It's that time.
It's not the worst idea of all time.
It's Tuesday night. The portal closes in 3 hours, and I'm here. It's just me. It's just Berm.
Man, that sounds.
We're giving him ideas.
I'm just gonna start setting up this live stream now.
He thought that he could get us to do a Backlash preview at the end of the week for WWE, and instead we've created an Only Berms account.
So life is full of twists and turns.
Honestly, because I think about the fact that it's hard to do a recorded show by yourself, but a live show where there's like actual commenters and stuff like that, I think that's something that's much more feasible. I could probably do that without going too crazy.
Well, that effectively gives you a co-host if you you have questions to answer. But I've been working and knowing you long enough to know that you don't even need that because
the comment section in your head is enough.
Your stream of consciousness, the jukebox that's playing in your head, is all you need.
Bill, what did you think of the Bandle on Tuesday? Did you notice what they did?
I don't think I played it. I haven't played it.
Loser. Let's do it right now while we're on the show. Fire up that app.
That's good podcasting.
Hey,
fire it up.
I've never meant this more than right now. I'm sorry for this latest episode of the Podcast Daily. We did our best. Maybe we'll have talked to you on Tuesday night again with Snap Judgments. I don't know. Again, we recorded this with 3.5 hours to go before the transfer portal closed. If this turned out to be totally irrelevant to you, I am very, very sorry. If you enjoyed it, thank you for watching. For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you later.